What up, YouTube? It's your boy Marv Over Matter back with another video. And today, what I'm going to talk about is the real attractiveness scale, man. The real attractiveness scale. So there's a lot of scales out there. Two popular ones are the 1 to 10, and then there's the PSL scale that the black pill uses. I'm going to talk briefly about those and why I think they don't work. But essentially, a scale is designed to give you information that will help you anticipate what your dating experience will be, right? That's why we look at scales. We call it beauty scale, we call it attractiveness scale, but essentially what you're trying to gauge is, what is my dating experience going to be like? If I'm an 8, I should have a better dating experience than someone who's a 6 or a 5. Right? That's what you're trying to guess. That's what you're trying to gauge. So the problem with that, with both of these scales, is that's not how it actually plays out. With the 1 to 10, there's no standard unit of measurement. So this girl might call me a 7. This girl might call me a 5. What do I expect from my dating life now? I don't know. Unless you're going to do a comprehensive survey and get thousands and thousands of girls to measure how you look and then average that out. And I'm talking about thousands from different cultures, from different, ethnic backgrounds, religions. You got to get all that and then average it out for the score to be statistically significant, for it to actually be something you can use in order to gauge what your dating experience is going to be like. And you're not doing that. I'm not doing that. Nobody's doing that. So it's pretty useless, right? It's pretty useless. I have friends who will be out. They'll say, oh, that girl's an 8. I'm like, bro, that's not an 8. That's a 6. Who's right? What should that girl expect out of her dating experience? I think she's a 6. He thinks she's an 8. No way for you to know. PSL scale, a bit better because it's a bit more standardized. They measure your face. They measure your, if you have hunter eyes, if you have a certain jawline angle, if you have certain spacing between your eyes, like there's some unit of measurement. The problem with that is, and I'll give a quick example, Dorian Gray from 50 Shades of Grey, Massimo from 365 Days. They're both movies with the billionaire archetype, where it's a super sexual, dominant, powerful man, right? So the appeal should be there for both. According to PSL, Dorian Gray looks better, right? The actor that played Dorian Gray looks better. He has a higher PSL score. But what I've observed in real life is that Massimo, although he doesn't have hunter eyes, he has prey eyes, he has a smaller jaw, smaller chin, all that, has gotten a better response from women. Right? You go on his Instagram, he has some of the highest, I think to this day, the highest like to follow ratio I've ever seen, where he has 5 million, or he had 5 million followers at some point, or however many million. It was lower than 5, and he would get 1 million likes on every picture, and thousands, tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of thirsty comments about the way he looks. And he had a cultural impact as being a sex symbol. I don't think the guy who played Dorian Gray ever had that impact. There was 3 movies, 3 50 Shades of Grey. I don't think he ever had that impact, although he had a higher PSL score. So he had the same exposure, the same clout, the same, backing to make him a sex symbol, but he didn't get it, even though he has a higher PSL score, right? So it doesn't really translate into your dating experience. Now, he might be considered more beautiful, right? It's a beauty score, but beauty doesn't correlate 1-to-1 with your dating experience. And that's something that we need to understand. It just doesn't correlate. So what does correlate? I think sexual attractiveness correlates to your dating experience, right? So the scale should be based on sexual attractiveness, right? Because you can have certain details, but still not be sexually attractive, right? I love using height because it's such a clear one. People think more height means more attractive. You can have a guy who's 6'1", but if he's gangly, doesn't have style, and doesn't really have confidence, he's still not going to be sexually attractive. You can have a shorter guy who's, 5'9", but he has swagger, he has confidence, he has, maybe a physique, he smells nice, right? And he'll be sexually attractive to women. So each feature can aid, but it's not the end all be all. But when you get those features collectively, then you get your sexual attractiveness. And that's what the scale should be trying to measure, is your sexual attractiveness, because from there, it's not a 1-to-1 correlation, but it's a higher correlation than anything individually to your dating experience, right? So that's the first foundational point. The second thing, and this is what I always say, if you've watched my videos before, you know, I always say you need to go on your own experience, right? So the scale should not be coming from someone else, right? 1 to 10 scale is somebody else telling you, hey, I think you're an 8. Hey, I think you're a 7. Hey, I think you're a 6. Because it's so subjective, you don't know what is true. You don't know which one to go with. You don't know what to expect, right? But if you go off of your own experiences, your own history with women, you know exactly how women respond to you, right? So you have a higher, more accurate amount of data points for you to go off of and to predict what it's going to be like in the future, right? It just makes more sense. You take not what you think was happening with women. So not a woman across the street that looked at you and you're like, okay, well, she liked me because she looked at me, because you don't know why she looked at you, right? You don't know why she looked at you. The girl at the coffee shop who was being cold to you, you don't know why she's being cold to you, right? You don't know why. So use experiences that you had with women that you've actually had conversations with, you actually talked to, you actually made advances on, right? Or girls who made advances on you. Use those interactions and those only as your data points for the scale that I'm about to give you. All right, so now let's get into the scale, right? What is the scale? What's the scale that makes more sense than these long holding numerical scales? So the way I think we should do it is, the way I do it is I use descriptors, right? Words, because words are more standard and consistent than numbers are. A 7 doesn't mean anything. It means different things to everybody. But desirable means the same thing to everybody. We know what the word desirable means, right? So how do I break it down? First category, first quadrant, because it's not an ascending scale. It's more of like a quadrant, so you know where you stand. First quadrant is sexually repulsive, right? Second quadrant, sexually unacceptable. Third quadrant, sexually acceptable. And fourth quadrant, sexually desirable, right? So you fall into one of these categories. I'll break it down. Sexually repulsive is pretty self-explanatory. Girls are not interested, they're averse, they're repulsed by the idea of having sex with you. You'll know this is true because you probably have no sexual partners, or if you do have sexual partners, they are probably women you paid for, or women that also have maybe something wrong with them socially, something wrong with them in a certain way where they're also social rejects. It's very hard for them to get a partner, and those type of women may, want to engage with you. But typically women avoid you because when women are sexually averse to someone, like they actually are repulsed by them sexually, they want to avoid them in general. So it's very hard for you to have conversations with women where maybe they're being patronizingly nice, right? So they might be like, oh, hey, yeah, how are you? Yeah, okay. And you can tell they're trying to avoid contact with you. They're trying to avoid interaction with you. They don't really want to be around you. And that's consistent across most of the women that you've interacted with. Because again, this is all based on your own experiences, your own interactions. If that is your experience, you're sexually repulsive. And the reason you're sexually repulsive may be because your face is just terrible, but typically it's more like you have really bad hygiene, you're really bad socially, you have really bad maybe style or whatever it is. Like something about you is extreme in a way that makes you repulsive sexually. Now, not a lot of guys are going to be there, like I said, so it's probably not you, but if it is, you know what I'm saying, that's how you gauge it. The next one is sexually unacceptable. Now, this is where a lot of guys who struggle with dating are going to be. You're going to be in the sexually unacceptable category. And what this means is, or what you should expect, or what you should look for to see if you're sexually unacceptable, is that women will talk to you because you're not repulsive, right? So women have no problem talking to you. Women will be friendly with you. You may have a lot of female friends. But that's kind of where it ends. whenever you make advances on women, the women in your life, they never typically want to actually date you, right? There's something about you that makes it very hard for women to want to date you now, or want to have sex with you. You may get dating opportunities, you may be in long-term relationships, but short-term sex is very, very, if not impossible for you to get. You probably don't have a lot of partners because you have to date in order to get girls to want to be with you. And the way you get them to even want to date you is typically because you have common interests, you have maybe the same humor. It's time, comfortability, familiarity, all these things help the girl be like, oh, okay, like I like spending time with you. But even in that case, it's probably not a girl who's sexual. It's probably not a girl who values sex that highly, right? She values that connection. She values the, that you're a good guy. She values those things. So you will still be able to get women, but you will not, most of your relationships, if not all your relationships, will not be sexually based with women, with the women in your life, right? You'll be friend zoned a lot. A lot of times girls will just be like, oh, I don't see you like that. Oh, that's just not, no, but we can still be friends though. Like, I really value your friendship. And if you're that guy, you're sexually unacceptable. Now, I only use 4 quadrants because I don't want to have a middle quadrant where guys can kind of slip in and delude themselves, right? And tell themselves, no, I'm in the middle. I'm kind of like this, but no, there's a clear split, right? So those first 2 categories struggle with women. If you're in one of those categories, you struggle with women. Let's be real about it. Be honest about it. Now, let's flip over to this other side. The other side, you become sexually acceptable. Now, what that means is you are somebody who women can see themselves having sex with, right? They're not necessarily going to see it right away, but they're not averse to having sex with you. They're not like, I'd rather not. There's something off about you. You can create a sexual vibe with a woman. You can create it. If you go out and you talk to a woman and you're having a good conversation, you're making her laugh, and then you inject sex into the conversation, inject sex into the interaction, she'll bite on it. She'll reciprocate. She'll be like, okay, yeah, and she'll go along with it. Right? This is where guys with game are going to be at. Guys who necessarily aren't, getting women to come up to them and all, but you have game. You have the ability to make something happen. Game will take you from being sexually unacceptable to sexually acceptable. That's what the point of game is. It will take you from one to the next, because here is probably something about the way you're carrying yourself socially, something about the way that you are that's just not masculine enough to arouse a woman. But once you get to sexually acceptable, you have that ability now to arouse a woman. You can talk to a woman in a way, carry yourself in a way, present yourself in a way that makes a woman go, okay, yeah, I would give him some, like, and let's see what he does. Let's see how he is, right? She's not opposed to it. She's open to it. That's a sexually acceptable guy. You'll have some one-night stands. You'll have some interactions with women that are short-term sexually based. You might have some like F buddies, some friends with benefits, things like that. This is going to be the majority of guys who are getting women, right? The key thing here is, though, you have to initiate most of it. Most of the sexual interactions you have to initiate them. If you don't initiate, you will not have sex. If you go out to a party, if you go out to a club, it's kind of tough to gauge, because the intention of the women is just to go and get attention. A lot of the times it's not to actually, do anything with a guy. But when you are out, if you don't interact, if you don't make it happen, nothing's going to happen. 9 times out of 10, nothing's going to happen. No girl's going to really come up to you. You're not going to have any interactions. You're just going to be out. And, if you're in a group of friends at a party and you don't do anything to try to get a girl, nothing's really going to happen, right? That's the sexually acceptable guy. You might occasionally get a girl to show interest first, right? But it'll typically be like, oh, she thinks you're cute. Like, you'll hear, oh, she thinks you're cute, or a girl might start a conversation with you, but it won't be sexual. She will not initiate the sexual aspect of the relationship with you for the most part, 9 times out of 10, right? And that's the sexually acceptable guy. If you make the advances, if you make the move, she will accept it. And that's where you're at. Now, the last group is sexually desirable. The sexually desirable guys, the way you know you're sexually desirable is you have had multiple experiences where women have initiated sex with you, initiated a sexual relationship, initiated sexual banter, sexual flirtation. The sexual aspect of your interaction was initiated by women multiple times over the course of your life, right? You've had situations where a girl just came up to you, said you were fine, said you were hot, said you were sexy, and tried to move forward through there. Maybe you have a regular relationship with a woman and then she just randomly breaks and she's like, okay, like, I want to have sex with you. I want you. You're right. She's the one who will initiate it. And it happens a lot. It happens a lot. If you go out to parties, like specifically parties where it's more exclusive, it's like a social circle event, like girls have no problem letting it be known that they're feeling you. Right? Maybe multiple girls would be feeling you at the same time and they might argue over you. You know what I mean? Like things like that. Girls would try to claim you. Like those type of things will let you know that you're sexually desirable. Now, there is another side of it where you get stark differences in the way that some women react to you. So some women will react to you in that way where it'll be very clear that they like you. And then sometimes you'll have girls who are just cold to you for no reason. They seem very closed off. It's very hard to talk to them, right? In those cases, it's because they're intimidated by you because you're sexually desirable. That's another response to being sexually desirable. Now, that's harder to gauge, so I wouldn't necessarily use that as the way to measure where you're at. I would use the fact that you've had those positive sexual experiences where women engage with you sexually. You get sexualized if you go out, right? If you're in a workplace or if you're in a group of people, they have no problem sexualizing you, right? Women have no problem sexualizing you. Those are kind of markers and ways to know that you're sexually desirable. You don't have to always initiate sex. Women will initiate sex with you, and it happens. It's going to happen to varying degrees for different guys because, your environment matters. If you're in church every day, it still might happen. But like if you're in certain places in a workplace or whatever it is, that's really, uptight and there's a lot of rules, depending on your environment is what I'm trying to say. You will have more of these interactions or less of these interactions. Like if you're a promoter, you might have a lot more of these interactions. If you're always in the club, you might have a lot more of these interactions. Whereas if you're not, you might not. But you will have had these interactions if you're engaging with women. Some women have done this with you. And you kind of get the feeling that, okay, women think I'm sexy. You kind of just know that, right? And that's that category. But I think this is useful because you can actually, it's based on your own experience, so you can actually gauge where you're at. So if you are sexually unacceptable, you know you're sexually unacceptable because these are your experiences. It's not somebody telling you you're a 4, so girls are not going to mess with you. Because somebody can tell you you're a 4 and you can still be sexually desirable. You could still have had situations where women are like throwing themselves at you or whatever it is, making it sexual first. So then do you ignore your experience and go with the fact that this person said you're a 4, or do you pay attention to your experience and know what it is, right? Experience-based scale is very important. And a descriptive scale, so you know exactly where you stand, is very important. Because a number doesn't mean anything. It's arbitrary, right? So that's the scale. That's the real scale, in my opinion. That's the way I do it. That's the way I break it down. That's the way I see it. I think that, like I said, it's much more useful because it's based on your own experiences and you are sure of what it is. You're much more sure of what it is. You're much more sure that girls have never said anything to you sexually first. Or maybe it happened one time out of your entire life. So if that's the case, you're not desirable. But you know that now, so you can do things to become desirable. If somebody calls you an 8 and you are sexually unacceptable, you're like, but I'm an 8. And you just keep hoping that the fact that you're an 8 changes your dating life. But that it won't. But if you know, all right, no matter what these people said about me being an 8, I know the truth is that whenever I make a move on a girl, she goes, oh no, we can be friends, then I know I'm sexually unacceptable. So I know there's something I need to do, right? It gives you more understanding, more perspective, and more power, because you can actually know what to do or know what's going on and make a plan from there, right? That's what I think that the use and the point of this scale is, right? But yeah, that's my scale, man. Let me know what y'all think. Like, comment, subscribe, drop some topics in the comment section. Let me know if you think this is bogus, if you think, nah, let's just stick to the 1 to 10. Let's do the PSL scale. I think that works a lot better. Forget everything you're saying. You know what I'm saying? This is, like, we're gonna keep it traditional. Like, if y'all think it's bogus, whatever, right? If you like it a lot, if you really appreciate the scale, if you think, oh, this is really useful, let me know. So yeah, man, I got my coaching calls in the description box, Instagram in the description box, and y'all know what it is. It's mind over matter, Marv over matter. Let's get it.